The morning sun cast long shadows across the Lincoln Memorial as tourists snapped photos and joggers hurried past. Among them, almost invisible to the busy crowd, sat a woman in her mid-40s with weathered hands and tired eyes. Her faded military backpack leaned against the bench, and beside her lay a loyal German shepherd with a service dog vest. The dog watched passers-by with alert eyes while his owner stared at the ground, seemingly lost in thought. This Army veteran had once commanded troops and coordinated complex operations in Afghanistan. Now, after 2 tours of duty and 8 difficult months on the streets, she was just trying to make it through another day. The pandemic had cost her the job she'd managed to hold for almost a year after discharge. Then the nightmares and flashbacks got worse. Her landlord had been patient, but patience runs out when rent doesn't come in. "Come on, buddy," she whispered to her dog, scratching behind his ears. "We should move before the park gets too crowded." As she gathered her few belongings, a commotion caught her attention. 3 black SUVs pulled up nearby, and men in dark suits with earpieces scanned the area. Tourists began pointing and whispering excitedly. The veteran tensed up. Large crowds and sudden changes always put her on edge, a leftover instinct from her time in combat zones. From the middle vehicle emerged former President Donald Trump, dressed in a blue suit and his signature red tie. He was on his way to a private meeting with business associates at a nearby hotel, according to the schedule his assistant had carefully planned out that morning. The veteran kept her head down. Important people were always passing through D.C., and they never noticed people like her. She tugged gently on Buddy's leash, preparing to leave before security asked her to move along, as often happened when VIPs came through public spaces. But something unexpected happened. As Trump walked with his entourage, he glanced over at the bench. Perhaps it was the military backpack with faded patches, or maybe the service dog's attentive posture. Whatever it was, something made him stop. To the surprise of his security detail, he changed direction and began walking toward the bench. "Sir, we need to keep to the schedule," one agent said quietly. Trump waved him off. "Just a minute," he replied, his eyes still on the veteran and her dog. The woman noticed the approaching group and stood up quickly, her hand automatically moving to Buddy's collar to keep him calm. Her heart raced. What had she done wrong? Was she sitting somewhere she shouldn't be? "You served?" Trump asked simply, nodding toward her backpack where a small American flag patch was visible next to unit insignia. She blinked in surprise, then nodded. "Yes, sir. 2 tours in Afghanistan. 10th Mountain Division." Trump extended his hand without hesitation. "Thank you for your service," he said, his voice carrying a weight of respect that caught her off guard. It wasn't the practiced line of a politician, but sounded genuine, one American acknowledging another's sacrifice. People nearby noticed what was happening. Phones came out, and a small crowd began to form at a respectful distance. The Secret Service agents shifted uncomfortably, forming a wider perimeter around their charge, who seemed completely unconcerned about schedule or protocol at that moment. "How long have you been back?" Trump asked. 4 years, sir," she replied, her voice steadier now. "And how long?" He gestured vaguely at her backpack and the bench, not needing to finish the question. 8 months, she answered quietly, a flash of embarrassment crossing her face. "Things got complicated after COVID." Trump nodded thoughtfully, looking at her and then at the gathering crowd. Making a decision that would surprise everyone present, he motioned to the bench. "Do you mind if I sit for a moment?" he asked. "I'd like to hear more about what happened." His security team exchanged glances, and one checked his watch pointedly. The veteran hesitated, then nodded, making room on the bench. As Trump sat down beside her, Buddy settled at her feet, and for a brief moment, the gap between their worlds, one of power and privilege, the other of struggle and survival, seemed to narrow. No one in the growing crowd of onlookers could have guessed what would happen next. The crowd kept a respectful distance, but their phones were up, recording the unusual scene. Secret Service agents formed a protective circle, constantly scanning the area while trying to give their charge some privacy. One agent spoke quietly into his wrist mic, probably explaining the unexpected delay to the rest of the team. The veteran sat stiffly at first, not used to being the center of attention. Her dog sensed her unease and pressed closer to her legs. Trump seemed to notice her discomfort. Don't mind them, he said, gesturing vaguely at the onlookers. Tell me about your service. Her shoulders relaxed a little. This was something she could talk about with pride, despite everything that had happened since. I worked in logistics, sir, making sure supplies got where they needed to go when they needed to be there. Not glamorous work, but essential work, Trump cut in. Nothing happens without logistics. I've been in business long enough to know that. A hint of a smile crossed her face. Yes, sir, that's exactly right. How long were you in? 12 years, she replied. Planned to do 20, but she trailed off, absently rubbing her left knee. The dog looked up at her, alert to the change in her voice. Trump noticed the gesture. Injury. She nodded. IED on a supply route. Cut my knee pretty bad. 2 surgeries later, and it's better, but the Army decided I wasn't field ready anymore. Trump frowned. And the VA? They're taking care of you? A bitter laugh escaped her before she could stop it. I've been waiting on paperwork for almost 3 years now. Every time I think it's moving forward, they need another form or another evaluation. She shook her head. Sorry, I don't mean to complain. No, you should complain, Trump said firmly. That's not right. A curious thing was happening as they talked. The formality between them was fading. It wasn't a former president and a homeless veteran anymore, just 2 Americans talking about real problems. The veteran found herself speaking more freely than she had in months. The hardest part was coming home and feeling useless, she admitted. In the Army, I had purpose. I was good at my job. Out here, she gestured at the city around them. I tried. Got a warehouse job after rehab. Was making it work until COVID shut everything down. And no family to help? Trump asked. She shook her head. My mom passed while I was deployed. Dad's in a nursing home with dementia. He doesn't always remember me. Pain flashed across her face. My brother helps when he can, but he's got 3 kids and his own struggles. Trump was listening intently, not just waiting for his turn to speak. He asked follow-up questions about her specific skills, what kind of work she'd been looking for, where she'd applied. Not once did he check his watch or look to his aides. A few feet away, his chief of staff was getting increasingly anxious, motioning about their schedule. Trump waved him off again. The veteran noticed and said, "You probably need to go. I appreciate you stopping to talk." "They can wait," Trump replied simply. Then he pointed to her dog. "Tell me about your buddy here." Her face softened. "This is Buddy. He found me in Afghanistan, just a skinny pup hanging around our base. Followed me everywhere. When I got hit, he stayed by me until help came." She scratched behind the dog's ears. "Bringing him home was a whole paperwork nightmare, but he's been with me through everything since." Trump reached out slowly, letting the dog sniff his hand before gently patting his head. "Loyal," he said. "That's rare these days." Something about the genuine interaction with her dog made the veteran's last reservations fall away. Maybe it was seeing someone so powerful take the time to properly introduce himself to a dog, or maybe it was just the accumulated weight of months of being invisible to passers-by. "Can I be honest with you, sir?" she asked suddenly. Trump looked at her directly. "I wish you would." The veteran took a deep breath and began to explain exactly what life was like for someone who had served their country only to fall through the cracks when they came home. And what she said next would change both their lives. The veteran took a deep breath and looked Trump straight in the eye. "The thing nobody tells you about coming home is how lonely it is," she said. "In the military, you're part of something bigger than yourself. Out here," she gestured vaguely at the city around them, "people thank you for your service, then look right through you." Trump nodded, saying nothing, letting her continue. "When I first ended up on the street, I was so ashamed I couldn't even call my brother. Thought I'd get back on my feet in a few weeks." She shook her head. 8 months later, and here I am. The shelters are often full, and sometimes, she glanced down at Buddy, they don't allow dogs. I won't leave him behind. "You shouldn't have to," Trump said firmly. A small group of tourists walked by, doing double takes when they recognized Trump. One man started to approach for a photo, but a quick look from a Secret Service agent stopped him in his tracks. "The worst part is," the veteran continued, "I know exactly what I need to get back on track. It's not even that much." A stable place to stay for a few weeks so I can clean up properly for interviews. Some help navigating the VA paperwork. Maybe someone who could look at my resume who actually has hiring power. She gave a bitter laugh. But when you're in this situation, people either see you as helpless or hopeless. The help you get is designed to keep you alive, not to get you back to the life you had. Trump was listening with unusual intensity, his normally animated face serious. The veteran had seen that look before. It was the expression of someone calculating, making decisions. "What did you do for work before the military?" he asked suddenly. "Worked at my uncle's warehouse through high school. That's where I learned logistics basics. The military just gave me more formal training and bigger challenges." Trump nodded. "And your ideal job now would be?" "Honestly, back in logistics, inventory management, supply chain coordination, shipping, that's what I know. I'm good with computers, good with systems. I can look at a mess and figure out how to organize it." Her eyes lit up briefly, showing a glimpse of the capable professional she had once been. "The problem is," she added, her voice dropping again, "when employers see the gap in my work history, or that my address is a P.O. box, the interviews tend to end quickly." Trump was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out his phone and started typing something. "What skills exactly would you list if you were writing your perfect job description?" he asked, surprising her with the directness of the question. The veteran thought for a moment. Supply chain management, inventory control, team leadership. I supervised 8 people in my unit. Emergency logistics, getting things where they need to be when normal channels break down. She paused. I'm also certified in several inventory management systems. Trump continued typing, then looked up. "One more question. If someone gave you a chance right now, are you ready to work?" "Honestly." The veteran straightened her back slightly, a flash of dignity crossing her face. "Sir, I got up at 5 a.m. this morning, washed up as best I could in a public restroom, walked 2 miles to the free clinic to check on my prescription, then walked here because it's safer during the day." She met his gaze steadily. "I haven't stopped working. I'm just not getting paid for it." A small smile crossed Trump's face. "That's what I thought," he said, and returned to his phone. One of his aides approached cautiously. "Sir, we're now 20 minutes behind schedule." "The meeting?" Trump held up a hand, cutting him off. "Tell them I'll be there soon, and get me the number for Reynolds." The aide looked confused. "Reynolds, sir?" "Jim Reynolds, from the development project in Atlanta. I need his number now." As the aide hurried off, Trump turned back to the veteran. "I need to make a call," he said. "But I'd like you to stay right here. Can you do that?" The veteran nodded, confused but curious. Buddy seemed to sense the shift in atmosphere and sat up straighter, watching Trump intently as he stood and walked a few paces away, phone to his ear. The veteran couldn't hear what was being said, but she could see Trump's animated gestures, the way he kept glancing back at her. After about 5 minutes, he ended the call and walked back to the bench, a determined look on his face. "I think," he said, sitting down beside her again, "we might be able to solve a few problems today." And what he proposed next left her completely speechless. Trump leaned forward slightly, his voice lowered but direct. "I just spoke with a friend who owns the Grand Avenue Hotel 3 blocks from here. He owes me a favor." Trump's eyes never left the veteran's face. "He's going to provide you with a room for 2 weeks. Clean place, good security, no questions asked." The veteran's mouth opened slightly, then closed. She'd heard plenty of empty promises before. "That's very kind, but—" "It's already done," Trump interrupted, showing her his phone screen with a confirmation text. "Rooms paid for. 2 weeks. They're expecting you." A mix of emotions crossed the veteran's face, surprise, suspicion, and something that looked almost like fear. Trump seemed to understand. "Look, I know what you're thinking," he said. "Why would I do this? Maybe it's for the cameras, right?" He gestured toward the onlookers who were still watching from a distance. The veteran didn't deny it. That was exactly what she was thinking. "Here's the thing," Trump continued. "There are no official cameras here. My team didn't organize this. No press release is going out." He looked around at the bystanders. "Sure, some people are taking videos on their phones, but that's not why I'm doing this." "Then why?" the veteran asked bluntly. Trump was quiet for a moment, seeming to consider his words carefully. "I've seen a lot of people with a lot of different problems," he finally said. "Some need handouts, some need therapy, some just need someone to listen." He pointed at her directly. "But you need a reset. A few weeks to get your feet under you. And that's something I can actually fix today." The veteran looked down at Buddy, who had his head resting on her knee. "And what about him?" "Pet-friendly room," Trump replied with a slight smile. "Already confirmed." For the first time, a real smile crossed the veteran's face. It transformed her completely, erasing years of hardship for just a moment. "Thank you," she said simply. "That's not all," Trump continued. "I also called my personal doctor. He's going to meet you at the hotel tomorrow morning to check your knee and make sure you're getting proper care. No charge." The veteran looked genuinely stunned now. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything yet. I'm not finished." Trump handed her a business card. "This is Jim Reynolds. He's the operations manager for one of my development projects. He needs someone with logistics experience, and he's going to call you tomorrow afternoon to set up an interview." The veteran took the card carefully, as if it might disappear. "Is this real?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "It's real," Trump confirmed. "But let me be clear, this isn't charity. Reynolds needs good people. If you're half as good at logistics as you say you are, you'll be doing him a favor." He pointed at the card. "The job has full benefits, including health insurance that kicks in after 30 days. The veteran stared at the card in her hand. After months of closed doors and unreturned calls, this sudden change felt impossible to process. Around them, the Secret Service agents were getting increasingly anxious. Trump's chief of staff approached again, this time more insistently. "Sir, we really need to go. They've been waiting almost half an hour." Trump nodded and stood up. "I need to go to this meeting. But before I do..." He reached into his jacket and pulled out his wallet. The veteran immediately shook her head. "No, sir. You've done more than enough. I don't need." "It's not what you think," Trump said, pulling out not cash but another business card, his own. He wrote something on the back before handing it to her. "This has my private office number. If anything falls through with the hotel or the doctor or Reynolds, you call this number. My assistant will put you through." The veteran took the card, visibly overwhelmed. "Why?" she asked again, more softly this time. "Why are you doing all this?" Trump looked at her for a long moment. The crowd of onlookers had grown, and several were openly filming now, but he seemed unaware of them. "Because I can," he said finally, "and because someone should." He extended his hand, and she stood to shake it. This time, it wasn't just a quick gesture of respect. It was a promise between two people, one who had the power to help, and one who had the courage to accept it. As Trump turned to leave with his entourage, the veteran called after him. "I won't waste this chance," she said firmly. Trump looked back and nodded once. "I know you won't." What no one expected was what would happen over the next 24 hours, and how this chance encounter would spark something much bigger than either of them intended. The veteran stood in the hotel room doorway, unable to move. After 8 months of park benches and shelter cots, the sight of a clean bed with crisp white sheets made her throat tight. Buddy sniffed around excitedly, tail wagging as he explored the new space. "Everything all right, ma'am?" asked the hotel manager who had personally escorted her upstairs. She nodded, unable to speak for a moment. The manager, who had been briefed on her situation, simply smiled and handed her the key card. "Breakfast starts at 6. Room service is available until midnight. And there's a small dog park at the back of the property for your friend there." After he left, she sat on the edge of the bed, running her hand over the smooth covers. The simple pleasure of having a door that locked, a shower with hot water, and a real bed felt overwhelming. Buddy jumped up beside her, and she buried her face in his fur, letting out a shaky breath. "We're okay," she whispered. "We're going to be okay." By the next morning, word had spread. The videos taken by bystanders had gone viral overnight. News outlets were running the story with headlines like "Trump's surprise act of kindness" and "Presidential encounter changes homeless veteran's life." Some were skeptical, questioning his motives. Others praised the direct approach to helping someone in need. The veteran knew none of this as she sat in a hotel bathrobe after her third shower in 24 hours. She had washed her clothes in the bathtub and hung them to dry. A knock at the door made Buddy bark once in a lat. It was the doctor Trump had promised, a gray-haired man with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. He examined her thoroughly, paying special attention to her knee. "The previous surgeries were good work," he said, "but you've been compensating for the pain, which has caused some other issues." He wrote several prescriptions and made a call to a specialist he knew. "I've scheduled you for physical therapy starting tomorrow. 3 sessions a week for the next 2 weeks." The veteran shook her head in disbelief. "I can't afford." "It's covered," the doctor interrupted gently. "And these prescriptions are already paid for. They'll be delivered this afternoon." After he left, she sat in stunned silence. For years, she had been fighting the system for proper care, and now it was happening so fast she could barely process it. Her phone rang, the prepaid one she kept for emergencies, with only a few minutes left on it. It was Jim Reynolds from Trump's company. "I understand you have logistics experience," he said without preamble. "We have a position that might fit your skills. Can you come in tomorrow morning?" "Yes, sir," she replied immediately. "What time?" 9 a.m. "And don't call me sir." "I worked for a living too. Air Force, 12 years. The veteran smiled for the second time in 2 days. Another veteran, someone who would understand. That afternoon, a package arrived at the front desk. When she went down to collect it, the receptionist handed her a large box. "This came for you," she said with a smile. Inside were 3 new outfits in her size, simple, professional clothes suitable for a job interview. A note at the bottom read, "For your fresh start. Good luck tomorrow." It wasn't signed, but she knew who it was from. Later that evening, as news of the story continued to spread, a reporter managed to ask Trump about it at an event. "I heard you helped a homeless veteran yesterday," the reporter said. "Was that a planned visit?" Trump shook his head. "No, it wasn't planned. I saw someone who served our country living on the street. That shouldn't happen." Critics are saying it was just for publicity, the reporter pressed. Trump's expression hardened slightly. "Look, I didn't tell anyone about it. Someone filmed it on their phone. But here's what matters. There are thousands of veterans like her out there. People with skills, with experience, who just need a chance. Maybe this story will remind other business owners they can do something too." Meanwhile, back at the hotel, the veteran laid out her new clothes for the interview. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to feel something dangerous, hope. She checked her phone and saw it was blowing up with messages. Her brother had seen the news and was trying to reach her. Old friends from her unit were sending supportive texts. People she hadn't heard from in years were suddenly back in her life. As she sat on the edge of the bed, with Buddy's head on her lap, she realized something important. Beyond the hotel room and the job interview, Trump had given her something even more valuable. He had made her visible again. And tomorrow would bring changes no one could have predicted. The veteran arrived 30 minutes early for her job interview, her heart pounding as she sat in the lobby of the gleaming office building. Her new clothes felt strange after months in the same worn outfit, but she sat straight-backed and kept her hands steady. A soldier's discipline never quite leaves. Buddy had stayed back at the hotel room. This was one mission she had to handle alone. She reviewed her mental notes one more time, recalling the skills and experiences she wanted to highlight. "Ma'am." A receptionist approached. "Mr. Reynolds will see you now." Jim Reynolds was a stocky man with a military haircut that had barely grown out. The American flag pin on his lapel and the Air Force mug on his desk confirmed what he'd mentioned on the phone. 10 minutes early, he noted, checking his watch. "Could start." The interview began professionally enough, with standard questions about her experience and skills. But halfway through, Reynolds set down his notepad. "Let's cut to it," he said. "Mr. Trump called me personally about you. That doesn't happen often." He leaned forward. "But I'm not hiring you as a favor to him. I need someone who can handle pressure and solve problems. So tell me straight, why should I trust you with this position when your life has been?" He paused, searching for the right words. "A mess?" The veteran finished for him. She didn't flinch. "Fair question. My life fell apart, that's true. But even on the streets, I kept a routine. I knew where every free meal was served, which shelters had open beds on which nights, What time the library opened so I could use computers for job searches. She met his gaze. I organized my survival the same way I organized supply chains in Afghanistan. Reynolds studied her for a long moment, then nodded. We have a major project starting next month, new development, tight deadlines, complicated supply chain. The job is assistant logistics manager. It's not entry level, but it's not senior either. You report directly to me. He named a salary that made her blink. It was more than she'd made before the military. The job comes with health benefits, as Mr. Trump mentioned, also housing assistance for the first 3 months. The veteran gripped the arms of her chair. Housing assistance. Reynolds nodded. Company keeps apartments for visiting executives and new hires relocating from out of state. You'd have one for 90 days while you find a permanent place. After the interview, she walked back to the hotel in a daze. The job was hers, starting Monday, 5 days from now. A real job with a real future. When she returned to her room, she found another surprise. Her brother waiting in the lobby. His eyes were red as he stood and hugged her tightly. I saw you on the news, he said, his voice breaking. Why didn't you call me? I was ashamed, she admitted. You have your own family to worry about. Back in her room, they talked for hours. Her brother had brought her old laptop, some clothes from storage, and photos of her nieces and nephews. Connections to her past life she thought were lost forever. That evening, her phone rang again. The number was blocked, but she answered anyway. This is President Trump, said the familiar voice. Just checking how the interview went. She told him everything. The job offer, the salary, the temporary housing. Good, Trump said, sounding genuinely pleased. Reynolds is a smart businessman. He knows talent when he sees it. There was a pause, then he continued more seriously. I've been thinking about our conversation, about veterans falling through the cracks. I've made some calls to people I know at the VA. The veteran felt her spine stiffen automatically at the mention of the VA. So many disappointments. I can't fix the whole system, Trump admitted, but I've arranged for someone to personally handle your paperwork. You should hear from them tomorrow. After they hung up, she sat by the window looking out at the city lights, trying to process how quickly her life had changed. Just 3 days ago, she'd been invisible, another homeless veteran that people walked past without seeing. Now she had a job, soon an apartment, and renewed connections with family. Her phone kept buzzing with notifications. The story had grown beyond just her and Trump. Other veterans were sharing their stories online. Business owners were posting offers of interviews for homeless vets. A national conversation was starting. Her brother had shown her some of the online reactions before he left. Many praised Trump's direct action. Others questioned why it took a president to do what the system should have done automatically. Some debated whether it was genuine kindness or a publicity stunt. The veteran didn't care about those debates. What mattered was that someone had seen her, really seen her, as a person with value, with skills to offer, with a future worth investing in. As she prepared for bed, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is just the beginning. Wait until you see what happens next. 6 months later, the veteran stood in front of a small crowd, her hands steady on the podium. Buddy sat calmly at her feet, now sporting a new service dog vest with a company logo patch. Behind her was a newly renovated building with a sign that read Veterans First, Housing and Employment Center. When President Trump approached me that day at the Lincoln Memorial, I was at my lowest point, she began. I'd been homeless for 8 months. I'd applied for dozens of jobs. I'd filled out hundreds of VA forms. I'd lost hope. She glanced to her right, where Trump sat in the front row, listening intently. What happened next wasn't just about me getting a job or a place to stay. It was about being seen as a person again, not just a problem. In the months since their chance encounter, her life had transformed completely. The temporary job had become permanent. The company apartment had given her time to find her own place. Her VA benefits had finally been approved, with back pay that helped her clear old debts. But the biggest change had come 3 months ago, when Trump had called her with a new proposal. I'm starting a foundation focused on veteran homelessness, he had explained. And I want you to run it. At first, she'd thought he was joking. Sir, I'm a logistics person, not a charity director. Exactly, Trump had replied. Most charities are run by people who understand fundraising but not the actual problem. You lived it. You understand the logistical challenges veterans face. And now you've been on both sides. Today was the grand opening of the Foundation's first center. The building had been donated by one of Trump's business associates, renovated by volunteers, and staffed mostly by veterans. It offered temporary housing, job placement services, and most importantly, dedicated advocates who could navigate the VA system on behalf of veterans. This center isn't just about giving people handouts, the veteran continued in her speech. It's about giving people a chance to rebuild their own lives with dignity. She looked around the room. Everyone here today has been part of that mission, whether you donated money, time, or just shared our story. In the audience sat Jim Reynolds, her boss who had become a mentor. Next to him was her brother and his family. There were business owners who had pledged to interview veterans. There were VA officials who had committed to streamlining processes. And there were other formerly homeless veterans who had found their way to the center in its first weeks of operation. 6 months ago, I was invisible, she said, her voice strong. Today, I have a purpose again, and together, we're going to make sure no veteran who served their country feels forgotten when they come home. The applause was thunderous as she stepped away from the podium. Trump stood to shake her hand, but instead, she gave him a quick hug that clearly surprised him. "Thank you for stopping that day," she said quietly. Trump nodded. "You did the hard part," he replied. "You were ready for the opportunity." Later, as the crowd mingled at the reception, a reporter approached the veteran. "Some critics say this foundation is just for show," the reporter said. "What would you say to them?" The veteran smiled. "I'd say come volunteer for a day. Meet the veterans we're helping. See what happens when someone gets keys to their first apartment after months or years on the street." She gestured around the room. "None of this would exist if President Trump had walked past me that day like everyone else did. But the real story isn't about him or me. It's about what happens when people with resources and influence decide to see the people society has made invisible." That evening, after everyone had left, the veteran sat alone in her new office, looking at a framed photo on her desk. It showed her and Trump on the bench that first day, captured by a bystander's phone. She had tracked down the photo after it went viral. Next to it was a more recent photo, her standing proudly with her new apartment keys. And beside that, a list of names, the first 10 veterans who had already moved from the streets into housing through the center. She thought about how a single moment, a single decision to stop and talk to someone, had created ripples that changed not just her life, but potentially thousands of others. Buddy nudged her hand, reminding her it was time to go home. Home, a word that had seemed impossible just 6 months ago. As she locked up the center, she noticed a man in a worn military jacket sitting on the curb outside. Without hesitation, she approached him. "Veteran?" she asked simply. He nodded, not making eye contact. "Me too," she said, sitting down beside him. "Want to talk?" And the cycle of seeing the invisible began again.